your opinion, what percentage of women do you think would qualify then, having this, these qualities that we've talked about? And could they be developed? And if so, what are your ideas about how that could happen?
I was very fortunate to have a strong mother who considered herself a feminist and who got me involved in social justice work early on and was pretty outspoken and made sure that her children were outspoken.
Okay.
So I think it really starts at home.
Okay.
And I think the first ingredient is having parents who believe in you and instill you with the sort of confidence that you need to go out there and run a business.
Okay.
And I think that applies to women and men alike.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd say, in terms of the other ingredients for success and things that women can do, I think it's just sort of comfort with public speaking and selling a big, bold vision. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine that Samasource would be where it was if I wasn't comfortable speaking in front of large groups of people.
Yes.
And really getting people excited about the idea.
Yes. Yes.
And a lot of that is completely independent from the skills required to run a business efficiently. And so if you don't have the ability to sell in the early days, it can be tough to find funding, it can be tough to win good board members or attract people to your team. And unless you have an outside source for those sorts of things, the business won't get off the ground. And once it's off the ground, then I think the skills become more about running a good organization and attracting the right talent.
So what I'm hearing is that you feel that some of it has to be innate and also encouraged quite young. So you don't lean towards that some of these things could be learnt?
Oh, absolutely, and I think they could also. I think none of it is innate. I think all of it's learned, but it's, whether it's learned from your parents or learned later is something else. And I will say, I'm attracted to traditionally manly sports and activities. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I got a motorcycle license a while ago. I box to exercise. I go shooting down at the range in Burlingame. So potentially that helps or makes me more comfortable in environments where there are lots of men. But I just, I do what I like to do, and I don't think of I don't think of these activities as male activities or female activities. They're just fun things to do.
Yes, really, yeah. And I guess in a way, just traditionally they've gone in that direction. But I'm sure a lot of women like to do so-called male sports or male hobbies, and I know I worked many years ago in the AIDS area when it was a big crisis in Melbourne, and I would often find myself in a huge room, just men and me, and you either get comfortable with it or you don't go there anymore.
I think a lot of it is that we're socialized, and I don't really buy a lot of these conspiracy theories, but for whatever reason, and sometimes women perpetuate it ourselves, we're socialized to think that women only belong in certain types of sports or certain types of environments, but there's been a long tradition of women really charting new territory. One of my heroes is a woman named Mary Kingsley, who is a Victorian woman who explored the Congo in the 1800s at a time when you didn't see many Victorian women in full skirts canoeing up the Congo River. And she wrote some of the most insightful things about local Congolese people and about the importance of understanding other cultures at a time when many men would have gotten sick and died, in the first month of being there. Incredible. She survived for something like 7 or 8 years. Wow. So there are all sorts of women that one could look to as examples of this. I think the challenge is that they're often not featured in popular culture, or we don't do a good enough job of sharing their stories.
Yeah, and if you can't find a role model that's female, as a woman, you can still have a role model as a male and still follow those qualities. I know I have. What do you see as the challenges for women entrepreneurs generally in sourcing venture capital? You've mentioned that you have to sometimes play like the boys and possibly be much more confident and aggressive. Is there anything else that you could think of at this point?
Sure. I think it's really important to note that a lot of the companies around here are tech companies, and tech companies tend to hire engineers.
Right.
And if you just look at the number of women who are graduating from computer science programs, I think it's something like no more than 8 to 10% of the graduating classes of computer science bachelor programs in the U.S. are women.
Right.
So to me, it's no surprise then that you see very few women engineers and very few women technical founders. And if I had a degree in computer science and didn't have to recruit an engineer to help me build my company, I would have been a lot better off and a lot more fundable from a VC perspective.
Yes.
So I think that's a huge part of it. There are just fewer women graduating with technical degrees.
Yes.
And that might start, because women are socialized in elementary school that they're bad at math or science. I'm not sure where that starts. I went to a math and science high school. My parents are Indians and therefore pushed me to enter math and science from a young age. And we grew up around it, so we never thought it was something that I never thought it was something that men were better at than me.
Yes. Yeah.
And maybe we just need to encourage more women to pursue those sorts of fields.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed bias or lack of openness from any venture capitalists as regards women entrepreneurs?
Never.
Great. Oh, that's really good news.
I will say, I cannot speak for all women. I speak just with my experience, and there are many reasons why it could have been easier for me. I went to a really good school. I have good networks. Being a nonprofit is a totally different thing than being a for-profit. So it may well be very difficult for women to get funding from VCs, but I can only speak from my experience.
Still, it's always good to see it from all angles, is my opinion. So what would you see then as the obstacles for inclusion of women entrepreneurs in achieving funding?
I think a big part of it is that fewer women are aggressive. First of all, women are less aggressive about pitching than men. Mm-hmm. I think when they do pitch, they sell a much smaller vision, and VCs want to know that they're going to make a lot of money out of your enterprise in a short period of time. So a lot of the pitches that I've seen my male friends do are extremely aggressive, over the top. I wouldn't feel comfortable giving them, and I think I'm a pretty aggressive person. And I think it really requires that, because there's a discount factor that the VC is going to apply to your model anyway. So I think if you're not incredibly, if you don't have an incredibly large vision, if you don't have your sights set on a huge market and on really disrupting that market, it's going to be really hard to interest a venture capital firm.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, I think women are by nature more conservative. Secondly, I would say, and again, this is anecdotal evidence.
Yes.
Carol Bartz said in a report that I thought was really interesting. She's the CEO of Yahoo and quite an outspoken woman entrepreneur. And she said that she thinks that women believe in this myth that you can have work-life balance. And in a startup, or if you're running a technology company, there's no such thing as work-life balance.
No.
And you can't wake up in the morning and make breakfast for the kids and do some yoga, go to work, run a company all day, come home and manage to have time to make love to your husband. It's just not possible, right? And a lot of the men who do this work end up getting divorced or devoting every second of their lives to the company, because that's what it takes. And so I think that means that the partners of women entrepreneurs have to be accepting of that, and women have to recruit partners who know that the business is going to take priority over everything else for a certain amount of time.
Yes.
And we have to be realistic about what we can do.
Yes.
And part of that is expectations that are placed on women by others, but we can set those expectations.
Yes, that's very sane. Thank you. What is your advice then for women entrepreneurs sourcing venture capital with all your experience and background? Is there any advice you'd leave us with?
It's just funny because we're a nonprofit, right? So I have to caveat everything with that, because we haven't sourced traditional venture capital. We've sourced philanthropy from venture capitalists.
Yeah.
I guess my advice would be to have a really clear plan, have a really bold vision, and be able to sell that effectively. Okay. And realize that it's not going to happen overnight, and it takes persistence, and it takes being willing to pound the pavement a little bit and not get discouraged. And if there's one common trait I've seen in successful entrepreneurs, it's the ability to take criticism in stride and to keep going despite what everybody else says. Some of the best entrepreneurs on the planet, in my sector, it's people like Muhammad Yunus or Gandhi or some of the big social change leaders, were told time and time again for decades that they were completely wrong. And it's only because they had the balls, pardon the expression, or maybe the estrogen in our case, to believe in their convictions. It's only
against all odds
that they had that enabled them to succeed. And I think women are much more likely to allow those that lack of confidence to affect their morale.
Yes.
And I don't know, maybe that's the way that we're programmed or the way that we're socialized, but we have to not let that happen in order to be successful entrepreneurs.
So it's really important to hold the vision no matter what's going on around you, even if they start calling you insane.
Even if they start doing that, and another piece of this is that I think there are many women who do that. So, it's just funny to me to think of things as a woman. I just think of it as an entrepreneur. And there's so many examples of people who manage to maintain their convictions. So just kind of allowing those examples to set in and learning from them is important for people in our space.
Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and you've been incredibly inspiring to me personally. Thank you.
Sure.